The desert stretched endlessly under the burning sun. Miles of golden sand, no roads, no signs of life, only the sound of the wind moving slowly across the dunes. And walking alone through that silent desert was Rango, a wandering traveler who loved exploring forgotten places and strange mysteries hidden in the world. Most travelers avoided the deep desert, but Rango always believed the desert hid secrets waiting to be discovered. That day he was following an old broken map he had found in a market days earlier. The map showed something strange. A small town deep in the desert. A town that no one ever talked about. As the sun slowly moved lower in the sky, something appeared in the distance. Old stone buildings, half buried in sand. Rango had found the town, but the moment he stepped inside the narrow streets, something felt wrong. The town was completely silent. Too silent. The buildings were ancient. Cracked stone walls, broken windows, old wooden doors barely hanging on rusty hinges. But the strange thing was, the town was not abandoned. Lights could be seen inside some houses, and figures moved slowly behind dusty windows. Someone still lived here. Yet when Rango walked through the streets, no one came outside. No one greeted him. Instead, the windows slowly closed, doors quietly locked, and whispers echoed through the narrow alleyways. Felt like the entire town was afraid of something, or someone. Finally, an old turtle shopkeeper slowly stepped outside his small store. He looked at Rango with tired eyes. "You should not stay here," he said quietly. Rango tilted his head. "Why not?" The old turtle looked toward the desert hills far outside the town. Then he whispered something strange. "Because night remembers." Rango rented a small dusty room in an old inn. The owner barely spoke. He simply handed Rango an old rusty key and disappeared into the back hallway. The room was small. A wooden bed, a cracked mirror, a small window facing the empty street. Outside, the desert wind moved slowly through the town. Rango tried to sleep, but sometime after midnight, he heard something. Footsteps, soft, slow, crunching lightly on sand. Right outside his door, Rango sat up. The footsteps stopped. He waited. Silence returned. Slowly, Rango walked toward the window and looked outside. The street was empty, but something strange caught his eye. Footprints. Fresh footprints in the sand, leading away from the inn, toward the edge of town, toward the desert hills, and toward a place barely visible in the distance. An ancient broken temple. The next evening, curiosity pulled Rango toward the temple. The path leading there was covered in sand, as if no one had walked there for many years. The temple itself looked ancient. Stone pillars cracked with age. Large pieces of the roof collapsed. Dark shadows filling the inside of the ruins. The moment Rango stepped inside, the temperature dropped. The air felt cold and heavy, like the temple itself was holding its breath. While exploring the dusty floor, Rango noticed something half buried under sand. A small silver pendant. Old, beautiful, covered in strange symbols. Without thinking, Rango picked it up. The moment the pendant left the ground, the wind outside suddenly stopped, and somewhere deep in the temple, a soft whisper echoed. That night, the town felt different. The streets were empty. The wind had stopped completely. Everything was unnaturally quiet. Then Rango saw something. Far down the street, a pale figure moving slowly through the darkness, floating slightly above the ground, wrapped in long torn white cloth. Its movements were slow, almost graceful. But something about it felt deeply wrong. The figure stopped, and slowly turned its head toward Rango. Two faint glowing eyes stared through the darkness. Then suddenly, the wind returned violently, and the figure disappeared. The next morning, Rango returned to the old turtle shopkeeper. This time, the old turtle looked worried. He stared at the pendant hanging around Rango's neck. "You went to the temple," he whispered. Rango nodded. The old turtle sighed deeply. Then he finally told the story. Many years ago, a traveler came to this town. He promised love to someone who lived here, but that traveler betrayed them. Inside that same temple, the betrayal led to a terrible death. And since that night, a restless spirit had remained trapped in the desert, waiting, searching, for the one who betrayed it. The old turtle looked at Rango with fear. That pendant belonged to the spirit. Rango slowly looked down at the silver necklace, and for the first time, he felt something cold move across his back. That night, the footsteps returned, but this time they were louder, slower, dragging across the sand outside the room. Rango looked out the window. The white figure stood in the middle of the street, completely still. The wind blew the torn cloth around its body. Its glowing eyes were locked directly on Rango. And then something terrifying happened. The spirit slowly raised one long pale arm and pointed directly at him, as if recognizing him, as if remembering him. The spirit believed something impossible. It believed Rango was the same traveler from the past. Rango returned to the temple again the next day, desperate to understand what was happening. Inside the ruins, he discovered old carvings in the stone walls, ancient drawings showing the story of the betrayal. But the final carving revealed something shocking. The traveler who caused the tragedy looked almost exactly like Rango, the same body shape, the same eyes, the same clothing. It was not the same person, but to the spirit, the resemblance was enough. The spirit believed the one who betrayed it had returned. That night, the town fell into darkness, and the spirit finally came for Rango. The white ghost floated slowly through the streets, moving closer, closer, toward the inn. Doors slammed shut across the town. Windows closed. Everyone hid, because they knew what would happen next. The spirit had waited for years, and now it believed its betrayer had returned, and it would not rest until it dragged Rango back to the temple. Rango stood alone in the empty street. The wind howled through the town. The white ghost slowly approached him, floating closer, its glowing eyes filled with ancient sorrow and anger. The pendant around Rango's neck began to glow faintly. The spirit stopped only a few steps away, and then it whispered something ancient, a name, the name of the traveler who betrayed it long ago. The spirit truly believed the past had returned. And somewhere deep in the desert temple, the tragedy that began centuries ago was about to happen again.